Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Always Time for True Crime. I'm Julia, and today I'm actually a little bit sick, so please bear with me if my voice doesn't sound 100% normal. And today's case I chose for a couple different reasons. So first, it is actually a super recent case. Jennifer Hillier Penney disappeared in November of 2016, and her family are still searching for answers. I wanted to hopefully make more people aware of Jennifer's story, so if the case has more attention, maybe it would get solved, and then it might be able to bring her family some closure. So today I'm going to be telling you all about the disappearance of Jennifer Hillier Penney. Jennifer Lynn Hillier was born on December 28, 1977 in St. Lunaire-Croquet, Newfoundland, Canada. St. Lunaire-Croquet is a town almost right at the top of the Great Northern Peninsula. It's an old fishing town, well, old for Canada, with a very small population. The last population census in 2016 measured just over 600 people. Jennifer was one of 7 children, and by all accounts, her family was very, very close. She got along well with her 6 siblings, and her parents were very happily married. When Jennifer was in high school, she met her future husband, Dean Penney. The two had their first daughter, Marina, when Jennifer was only 17. They then moved to the nearby city of St. Anthony's, about 25 minutes away, where they got married when their daughter was about 4 years old. Although St. Anthony's was much bigger than St. Lunaire-Croquet, it was still a fairly small town as well, with a population of approximately 2,000 people. It's a bit more on the north side of the peninsula, and the views are amazing. Cliffs surround the town while icy waters with strong tides crash against the rocks. However, with such harsh waters and steep cliffs, it's an easy place to get yourself hurt. Since 2000, 4 people, including Jennifer, have disappeared. However, most residents assume the first 3 disappearances are linked to misadventure, because, like I said, rough waters, cliffs, waves could easily sweep you out to the Atlantic Ocean. Anyway, Jennifer and Dean were settling into the new town. Dean began working in the fishing industry, Jennifer had a job at a local hospital, and the couple later had another daughter, Dina. According to Jennifer's friends and family, her life revolved around her kids. She was very family-oriented and was very well liked around town. Her daughter Marina says that her mother was her best friend, and confirms that Jennifer was a great mother to both of her daughters. But in 2016, Jennifer had been having a rough year. According to Jennifer's daughter Marina, who was 21 at the time, Jennifer had simply fallen out of love with her husband Dean and wanted to start anew. She had been with him since high school and had become a mother at 17. I feel like she probably had to grow up pretty quickly when she had a daughter, and maybe she felt like she missed out on some of the things that other young adolescents get to experience. I can just imagine that now that her kids are older and don't need as much looking after, maybe she felt this was her opportunity to ignite some change. Plus, people grow apart, especially if you met in high school and you were very, very young. So Jennifer had been talking with a lawyer, and Dean wasn't taking it very well. He accused Jennifer of having affairs and was constantly trying to keep tabs on her. Amid all of this stress, Jennifer's mother passed away in the early fall of 2016. This was particularly hard on Jennifer's father, as the two had been married for a very long time. So Jennifer decided to move in with her father in nearby St. Lunaire-Croquet, both because she wanted to help him out, but also as a way to get some space from Dean. Her 15-year-old daughter Dina stayed living with her father. Jennifer was actually planning to move 8 hours away to Glovertown, where her daughter Marina was living, and even applied to a couple jobs down in that area. It really seemed like she was getting together her next chapter. During the last week in November, Dean was away duck hunting for the week, and Jennifer was watching their daughter Dina. Dina didn't want to stay at her home alone, but she also didn't want to go stay at her grandfather's house with her mom because that was 25 minutes away from her school, whereas she could actually just walk to school from her dad's house. Jennifer was reluctant to agree, but to make life easier for her daughter, Jennifer decided to stay overnight in the house while Dean was away. But that didn't mean her concerns went away. She told her siblings and friends that she was scared to go back to the house in case Dean came back to hurt her in the middle of the night. But despite these fears, Jennifer stayed with her daughter. On November 30th, Jennifer had dinner with her sister Yvonne and her father. She then drove her sister to a doctor's appointment around 6 p.m., but on the way to the doctor, Dean called. Her sister was in the car and was able to hear the whole conversation. Dean apparently asked Jennifer when she was going to be home. When Jennifer said she was coming home now, Dean clarified, "Like, right now?" "Yes, I'll be home in a few minutes," Jennifer replied. She dropped her sister off and told her she would see her tomorrow before heading back to Dean's house for the fourth night. When Jennifer arrived at what used to be her family home at around 8 p.m., her daughter Dina was out. She texted her that she had a headache and was going to have a bath and then go straight to bed. An hour and a half later, just before Dina's 9:30 curfew, Dina called her mother to see if she could get a ride home, but there was no answer. So she then decided to call her paternal grandmother Ruby, who was able to pick her up and drop her home. When she got home around 10 p.m., Dina saw her dad outside, who said he had forgotten his decoys for his hunting trip and had come back to get them. She then went inside, and since she was past curfew, the teenager crept upstairs and went to bed. The next morning, Dina was woken by her mother's alarm. When it kept ringing, Dina got up to go turn it off and found her mother's phone and purse on the counter. She called around the house for her mother but got no answer. However, all of her mother's stuff was still there. Her car, even her jacket and her boots. And this is winter in Newfoundland. You don't go out without a coat and boots. So then Dina went upstairs to look for Jennifer and noticed the bathtub was still full with water. It was then that Dina immediately called her paternal grandmother and told her she couldn't find her mom. Ruby then called her son, aka Dean, and told him to come home, as he was apparently out duck hunting. Dina then proceeded to call some of her aunts and uncles on her mom's side and tell them what was going on. Glenn Hillier, Jennifer's brother, remembers his initial reaction. He quotes, "My sister Vonnie called me and said, 'Jennifer's missing, Jennifer's missing.' And I said, okay, I'll go up. I just thought she went to Tim Hortons or something and got a coffee. But as I pulled in the driveway, the cops pulled in behind me and I said, oh shit, what's going on here? God, this is more than I thought, right?" I know so many cases where the families say, "I immediately knew something was wrong," but for me, I think I would respond the same way that Glenn did. You never think it's going to happen to you, so I think that if one of my loved ones went missing, I would assume the same thing. And also, since I'm Canadian, I would also probably assume that they went to Tim Hortons. Some of Jennifer's friends who she had confided in, however, had different speculations. Upon hearing of Dean coming back to the house for his decoys, they were immediately suspicious. Dean had already been hunting for days at this point, so why would he come back now for his decoys? Wouldn't he have come back to get them days ago? He was also a very experienced duck hunter, so Jennifer's friends and sisters found it weird that he would actually forget these. So, the morning of December 1st, everyone was at Dean's house trying to figure out where Jennifer had gone. As hours passed and Jennifer didn't show up to work, it started to sink in. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police, also known as the RCMP, were in charge of the investigation. But at first, were treating Jennifer's disappearance as a runaway or a possible suicide. They pointed to the fact that she was going through a divorce and her mother had just died. Perhaps it was all too much for Jennifer. But her friends and family were adamant that this was not the case. Jennifer would never up and leave her two daughters, and she would have at least called into work. She also hadn't taken her phone, wallet, passport, or any personal belongings. However, thinking they were looking for her body as a result of suicide, police conducted searches with helicopters, search and rescue teams, and cadaver dogs. Many citizens in the town gathered together to help search for Jennifer, but nothing turned up. Finally, on December 7th, a week after Jennifer had disappeared without a trace, the RCMP officially declared her case suspicious. They then sent a forensics team to Dean's house to collect fingerprints and to actually analyze the crime scene. But unfortunately, since this was a week later, there were so many people going in and out of that house that it would be almost impossible to sort through so many sets of prints. Jennifer's daughter Marina estimates that about 100 people had been in and out of the house that week. This includes officers, family, friends, visitors bringing over casseroles and baked goods to show their support, and more. The RCMP should have closed the house down immediately as a possible crime scene, especially because Jennifer's family was telling them that she had feared her husband. Anyway, so the RCMP collected as much as they could from the house, Dean's car, and Dean's cabin where he was duck hunting. According to an interview with one of Jennifer's best friends, RCMP didn't look at Jennifer's laptop until months into the investigation. But once they started looking at her laptop and phone records, police began to see what the family had been telling them all along. Dean had not been taking the divorce well. It was evident through text messages that Jennifer had feared for her life. One of her friends reports that Jennifer had once told her that Dean had threatened her and basically told her that if he wanted to, he could get rid of her and they would never find her. Like, did the RCMP just think that was a normal conversation to have with your spouse? After that, Jennifer's friends made a system to make sure someone was in contact with Jennifer at all times. They always made sure one of them had heard from her recently. Police also learned that the night that Jennifer vanished, she was texting a male friend. The relationship was strictly platonic, as this guy had also just gotten divorced and was giving Jennifer some advice on divorce lawyers. Dean did know that she was texting another man and was not happy about it. According to Jennifer's text to a friend, she claims that Dean would drive by her work to keep tabs on her and that she didn't trust him. It has also been recently publicized that Jennifer had recently removed Dean from her life insurance policy. Just 2 weeks before she disappeared, she had made her 2 daughters the sole beneficiaries. So lots of information came out and put a lot of speculation on Dean. Especially in a small town, rumors spread fast, and the RCMP didn't want people to talk about this case when there was no evidence to prove anyone guilty. In October 2018, the Supreme Court of Newfoundland issued a publishing ban on the case, which would prohibit the media from publishing anything about whether the RCMP had named any persons of interest. Basically, they didn't want rumors getting out about who was involved until they were 100% sure and had evidence to support it. After reading several articles, it seems pretty obvious to me that the person police didn't want to name as a suspect was Dean Penney, and because they didn't have enough evidence to call him a suspect, they didn't want media telling the public that he might be involved. Dean's lawyers agreed with the ban because, 1, they don't want people thinking their client is guilty if he isn't, and 2, because this could compromise future juries. Jurors are not allowed to be biased or have any extra knowledge about the case besides what is presented to them. So if rumors are spreading around town and then maybe later Dean is charged with involvement, it would be hard to find jurors who haven't been influenced by the media. That ban lasted a year. During this time, however, there was a TV documentary being made about Jennifer's case. The Fifth Estate is a documentary program on the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, otherwise known as the CBC network, and they were about to release their documentary. So they had to be very careful to try and present the evidence in an unbiased way and make sure that their documentary didn't say anything about Dean being involved. I, of course, watched the documentary and was really interested to see that the Fifth Estate was able to talk to Dean. When they approached him for a statement, Dean tells them he was down duck hunting for the whole week. However, then the lead journalist, Mark Kelly, confronts Dean about the fact that he came back to the house that night to get his decoys. It's then very interesting to see Dean kind of pause before he then says, Well, I did come back to get them, yes. Here's a little clip so you guys can hear for yourself. But keep in mind, this was not an official interview. The Fifth Estate literally just approached Dean outside.
I was down at the cabin down the Horse Arm. I was down for a full week, hunting night, duck hunting night, and it's just really strange, yeah.
The night she disappeared, were you back here to get your decoys?
I came back here, but my daughter was here in the house at that time.
Yeah, I know. But did you come? You did come back here to get your decoys that night.
Yes, I told the police that.
So you were here at the scene of her disappearance that night.
A lot of people here, but nobody knows for sure that she disappeared from here.
I also find it really interesting that Dean says nobody knows for sure if she disappeared from the house. But her phone was there, her jacket and coat were there, and her boots, and her wallet. The bathtub was still full. If she didn't disappear from the house, where did she disappear from? But, as guilty as Dean may look, RCMP have never officially named him a suspect. Though they do say the investigation is ongoing and that they're still testing items from the house and from Dean's car. From a list of 100 items taken from the house and car, only 15 have been sent to the lab. An RCMP constable claims that the forensic lab will only accept requests for a few items to be analyzed at a time. So the RCMP have to pick what items they think should be tested first, and others have to wait. Jennifer's daughter Marina believes that if the RCMP had something that could easily implicate Dean, then Dean would already be arrested. But perhaps there will be some small evidence in one of the next items to be tested. It seems as though most of Jennifer's friends and family feel Dean had something to do with it, and they believe Jennifer is dead. I do agree that he looks like a good suspect. It is quite a coincidence he came back to get his decoys on the night that Jennifer disappeared, especially because he had a history of threatening her, and Jennifer had expressed these fears to her friends. Also, because the RCMP took 7 days to treat the house, car, and hunting cabin as potential crime scenes, it would have given him time to clean up and maybe dispose of other evidence. I know that if it was Dean, his fingerprints at the scene wouldn't really prove anything since it was his house, but maybe he had an accomplice they could match fingerprints to. I still believe RCMP should have declared the house a crime scene right away. Many also point to the fact that Dean didn't take part in the search for Jennifer. This can be looked at in 2 ways, though. So it could be he wasn't searching because he knew she wasn't going to be found, because Jennifer was dead and he knew that. Or, just to play devil's advocate, if Dean is under suspicion, he would look way more guilty if he were the one to find Jennifer's body. So I think when you're a person of interest in a crime, even if it's just in the eyes of civilians, it's probably best to stay away from the whole thing. Marina says she has asked her father to take a polygraph test, but he refused. Dean has always denied any involvement in the case. While it looks like Dean is the most popular suspect in the eyes of family, friends, and outsiders, I want to briefly mention some other theories. Although I haven't been able to find any evidence to back this up, there is another theory in which Dean, his mother Ruby, and Dean and Jennifer's daughter Dina are all involved. This is probably a rumor because Dina, Dean, and Ruby were all the first on the scene, and I guess the ones to find the body, or in this case to discover someone missing, are always deemed suspicious. But Dina was only 15 at the time, and to suggest that a 15-year-old was involved in a ploy to hurt her mother, I'm not going to agree with that. On the other hand, it's also thought that Ruby may have cleaned up the crime scene. A week after Jennifer went missing, Ruby posted a $25,000 reward for any info that would help find her daughter-in-law. Some speculate that she did this to take suspicion off her and her son. Like I said though, this could easily just be a rumor around town. Then there's of course the theory that she ran away and started completely anew. but in my opinion, this doesn't seem likely. I definitely think there's foul play here. Recently, in the summer of 2019, rumors spread around town that someone had found bones, along with a plastic air mattress, in Hare Bay, Newfoundland. Marina remembers this as the moment she thought she would finally get some answers. But sadly, upon looking into the story further, it turns out the part about finding bones was completely fabricated. Only a plastic air mattress was found. The family continue in their mission to find justice for Jennifer. They've really done all they can do. Back in 2018, the family even consulted a psychic. I find this so sad because even if you don't believe in psychic, it really just shows how desperate you are for answers. Even when you don't believe in this profession, you still hold on to the smallest bit of hope that the psychic will prove you wrong and give you some answers. Jennifer's daughter Marina currently runs a Facebook page in remembrance of Jennifer, and according to her posts on this, she believes her father is involved and no longer is in contact with him. She is also now a mother herself to a baby boy, a grandson Jennifer would never get to meet. Unfortunately, Jennifer's father has since passed away, never knowing the truth about what happened to Jennifer. This past November was the 3rd anniversary of Jennifer's disappearance. 60 friends and family of her marched with signs and t-shirts past the RCMP office. This walk was not only for her memoriam, but also to prove to the police that they're not going to give up until they get justice. As for the town of St. Anthony's, civilians are still on edge. It used to be a very safe community, where people often didn't lock their doors. A town where it was okay to walk alone at night. But after Jennifer's case, the people of St. Anthony's aren't as trusting. Both Jennifer's family and friends, as well as the RCMP, insist that someone knows something. The answers are out there. We just gotta find them. The best way that people can help is to just keep this case alive. Tell your friends, family, and spread the word that Jennifer deserves justice. Anyone with tips can call the St. Anthony's RCMP or Crime Stoppers, and I'll put the contact info in the episode description. I've also posted some pictures of Jennifer to my Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Always Time for True Crime, so I recommend that you guys go check it out. And as always, if you enjoyed this episode, please go leave me a review, guys. It really, really helps. And I will see you guys next week. Stay safe and healthy, everyone.